There are things buried beneath the soil of Texas that were never meant to be unearthed, and voices in the earth that no man was meant to hear. In 1885, federal investigators stepped into the empty town of Quicksilver Creek and heard nothing. Not the whisper of wind, not the cry of a child. Just a silence so thick it clung to their lungs like mercury vapor. This was not an abandoned town. It was a crime scene disguised as a ghost story. The buildings stood untouched, meals half-eaten, beds unmade, candles melted to stubs beside open journals. It looked like everyone simply vanished. But the truth was far darker. Below the surface, in the mine shafts carved deep into the belly of the hill country, they found notes, documents, diagrams, lab records signed by the same 7 names. Krueger, the 7 brothers, men of science, men of vision, men of a darkness that walked with purpose. Heinrich, Friedrich, Wilhelm, Otto, Gustav, Bernhard, and Klaus. They were no ordinary immigrants, no dusty frontier settlers with calloused hands and whiskey on their breath. These men came from the shadows of Prussia's academic elite. They spoke fluently in equations and chemicals, in control, in discipline, in power. And Quicksilver Creek was never just a mining town. It was a design, a construct, a living lab built on consent, extracted like ore. Over 300 workers and their families, hired with promises of care, paid with coin and false safety, and when they bled from their gums, lost their teeth, forgot their names. Otto said it was exhaustion. When children screamed in night terrors about the blue light in the mines, Friedrich called it superstition. But the brothers knew. They were recording every symptom, documenting, analyzing, not treating but observing, like gods watching their creation twist. What happened beneath Quicksilver Creek was not madness. It was method, cold, controlled, efficient. And when the work was done, the town was erased. Files vanished, names stricken. The Krueger's methods, 50 years ahead of modern toxicology, was too advanced to be believed, too horrific to be accepted.
It looks like comfort.
What
order,
government allowed it?
Safety.
What university trained them?
Quicksilver Creek was
Who
not
protected
built.
them when they disappeared?
It was engineered.
This isn't just a
From the
story
placement
about
of
a
homes
forgotten
to the
town
water
in Texas.
systems to the very language
This is
used
about
in
the
work
system
contracts.
behind it.
Everything
a system that
followed
let
a
it
deeper
happen.
logic.
A system that still
One
breathes
designed
beneath
not
our
just to mine
institutions.
mercury, but to
And
mine
if you think
obedience.
that system ever went away,
The
You
Krueger
haven't been
brothers
paying
weren't
attention.
simply scientists. They were architects of human behavior. Wilhelm the engineer designed the town's infrastructure not for efficiency, but for surveillance. Every street curved gently toward the Krueger compound, every home positioned to be visible from the brothers' elevated perch. There were no corners to hide in, no privacy to speak of. And the people? They were chosen. Records show most workers were migrants, uneducated, transient, poor, men who wouldn't be missed, families desperate enough to trade safety for silence. They weren't just employees, they were subjects. And Otto, the medic, played his role perfectly. He wasn't there to heal. He was there to observe, administer treatments that weren't treatments, salves that contained trace compounds, tonics that altered memory, sleep, cognition. They kept logs of symptoms, aggression, paranoia, passivity. They were building something deeper than science. They were mapping the human mind. This wasn't about mercury. That was just the surface layer, a reason, a cover, a story for the files. No. What the Krueger brothers were truly extracting wasn't metal, it was compliance. They were decoding how to shape human behavior, how to manufacture loyalty, how to remove resistance, not with whips or threats, but with routine, kind words, the illusion of care. That's the darkness you need to understand. Because what happened in Quicksilver Creek didn't die in the mines. The notes the brothers left behind, those that weren't ahead.
It destroyed, formed the foundation for studies in psychological conditioning that wouldn't enter the public eye for another 80 years. And when they did, it wasn't in a town, it was in schools, prisons, marketing firms, government experiments. Ever heard of MK Ultra, the Stanford prison experiment, Operation Paperclip? They weren't the origin, they were the echo. The blueprint began here, and the men who made it understood something the world still refuses to face. Control doesn't need to be forced. They didn't just study how to control the body. It can be planted. They studied how to erase the soul. And once it's rooted, what made the Krueger brothers so dangerous wasn't just their knowledge of chemistry or engineering. It was their understanding of emptiness. They understood that if you want to truly own a person, you must first hollow them out. It began with routines, wake times, meal times, work shifts, church services, everything scheduled down to the minute. Every man, woman, and child lived in rhythm, predictable, repeatable, controllable. Next came language. Workers weren't allowed to speak in their native tongues. German, Spanish, Czech, all forbidden, only English, only approved phrases. They rewrote the vocabulary of thought itself. Then, symbols. The Krueger insignia, an Ouroboros coiled around a miner's pick, was stamped on every building, every ration slip, every worker's jacket. It became a god symbol, etched into dreams by repetition. Psychologists today call this environmental scripting. The Kruegers called it preparation, because once the people were dependent, once they'd forgotten their own rituals, their own beliefs, their own tongues, they were ready. Ready for the void. You see, the brothers didn't just test the effects of mercury on the body, they tested it on consciousness. Low-level mercury exposure can cause tremors, memory loss, mood swings, but at certain dosages, it fractures identity, induces hallucinations, nightmares, a slow erosion of what makes a person themselves. And the Kruegers documented it all, with clinical detachment. Subject 42 no longer responds to own name. Subject 13 asked, "What is my child's face supposed to look like?" Subject 89 refuses to look in mirrors, claims reflection laughs differently. They were watching souls unravel. Not metaphorically, literally, because here's the terrifying truth. The mind can be dismantled, and once it is, the pieces don't always go back the same way. Now stop. Ask yourself, where else have you seen this? Where else do institutions strip you of language, of routine, of self? Think military basic training. Think cults. Think prison systems. You think it's different? You think we evolved past this? No. We refined it. Modern control systems didn't abandon the Krueger's methods. They perfected them, gave them new names, gave them budgets, PR teams, dress codes, and today you line up for them voluntarily. Because once the void is familiar, once you've been trained to fear your own reflection, you'll accept any identity they hand you, and you'll thank them for it. A secret doesn't stay buried because no one finds it. It stays buried because those who do are told to look away. When the federal investigators stumbled upon Quicksilver Creek in 1885, they expected a collapse, a cave-in, a natural tragedy. What they found was a void wrapped in ritual, and they didn't know what to do with it. They sent a telegram to Washington. Then, silence. 2 days later, men arrived. Not lawmen, not doctors. Men in dark coats, with no names, no badges,
Only one directive: seal it. The files were boxed, tagged. Some were sent to a warehouse in St. Louis. Others vanished altogether. And the Krueger name erased. From mining registries, from medical journals, from immigration logs. But why? Why protect a family of rogue scientists who'd poisoned hundreds? Because the Kruegers weren't rogue. They were connected. Heinrich's personal letters, one of the few artifacts that survived the purge, reveal a correspondence with officials in Berlin, London, even Boston, men tied to universities, institutions, funding boards. One line stands out. Our results confirm the behavioral yield rates proposed by RC. I will send full data once field saturation is complete. Who was RC? Some believe it refers to Richard Cable, a 17th century English noble whose rumoured experiments in Dartmoor prisons mirror the Kruegers' work nearly word for word. Others believe it refers to the Rosicrucians, a secretive European brotherhood obsessed with spiritual alchemy and consciousness manipulation. The RC initials. Their founders, Christian Rosenkreutz, coincidence or confirmation? Because what the Krueger brothers did in Texas wasn't a one-off event. It was part of a lineage, an underground thread that stretches from medieval monasteries to Enlightenment laboratories to modern think tanks, a shadow network of knowledge seekers willing to do waiters at others won't, to see what others won't dare look at. Some call it the Brotherhood of the Veil. Others say it has no name, only symbols. The Ouroboros, the black sun, the raven beneath the crown. And when Quicksilver Creek fell, that network didn't dissolve. It adapted, absorbed, moved underground, deeper than before. Because they learned something in Texas. Exposure is a risk. Control must be reframed. Don't hide the truth. Drown it. In television, in doctrine, in entertainment, in spectacle. Today, you don't need to erase records. You just bury them beneath 10,000 distractions. You were never meant to find this story. And now that you have, you don't leave unchanged. The most effective cage is the one you're convinced you built yourself. By the time Quicksilver Creek collapsed into silence, the experiment was complete. Not the mercury trials, not the biological data. No, the real test was consent. Because the most haunting discovery unearthed in the Krueger compound wasn't the bodies. It wasn't the lab notes. It was the journals of the workers. Dozens of them. Pages and pages of praise, gratitude, loyalty. Dr. Otto says the trembling will pass. Wilhelm built us a schoolhouse. My boy is learning numbers. I dream of the symbol now. It makes me feel calm. They weren't prisoners. They were devotees. Even as their bodies broke down, even as their minds slipped, even as children died. They believed it was progress. They believed it was for their own good. The Kruegers had given them meaning, ritual, identity. And in return, the workers surrendered themselves, piece by piece. This is the theatre of consent. An ancient mechanism hidden in plain sight. You see it in modern institutions. Give them uniforms, and they will forget who they were. Give them purpose, and they'll endure anything. Tell them it's normal, and they won't ask why it hurts. From religious cults to corporate culture, military indoctrination to media programming. The principle remains: suffer willingly, and you'll suffer quietly. The Krueger brothers weren't just testing chemicals. They were refining how to replace truth with narrative, pain with progress, trauma with transformation, and they succeeded.
After the collapse, rumors spread, whispers of poison, madness, death. But the official record? Sanitized. Structural instability. No criminal charges, no federal inquiry, no survivors came forward. Because there were none left, willing to betray the illusion. The real horror isn't that the Kruegers got away with it. It's that their methods became a template. Because once a system learns how to get people to ask for their own leash, it never forgets. Ask yourself, how much of your life is truly yours? The work you do, the beliefs you hold, the fears you obey. Are they yours? Or were they given to you? Because the theatre is still running, and the next act is already on stage. Before you can enslave a man's future, you must first rewrite his past. Every man who stepped into Quicksilver Creek crossed a threshold, not just of geography, but of identity. And one by one, they forgot who they were. The Krueger brothers knew something that most governments, religions, and corporate systems now weaponize daily. The mind clings to pattern, but the soul clings to story. You want to control a man? Don't take his freedom, rewrite his origin. In the clinic, Otto administered more than mercury. He used narratives. Your cough isn't from the fumes, it's your body purifying. You're not forgetting your child's name, you're being reborn. You aren't sick, you're becoming. Gaslighting? No. This was ritual. Every symptom reframed, every fear inverted, every breakdown repackaged as transformation. And the people believed it. Because they needed to. Because when you are stripped of your anchors, your name, your history, your faith, you will accept any truth that gives you identity. This is the ritual of the mirror. And it's not just history. You live it now. Social media tells you what kind of man you should be. Ads sell you a past you never lived. Education trains you to repeat, not to remember. They shape your image, then hand it back to you in glass and screens, and you mistake it for truth. That's how they do it. Not through force, but through reflection. They warp your mirror, and you warp yourself to match. But not everyone stays blind. Some see through, some remember, some awaken, and now you're one of them. If you've made it this far, you're no longer a spectator. You've stepped off the stage, out of the crowd, behind the curtain. Type this in the comments right now to seal it. The mirror has cracked. The mirror has cracked. Write it twice, lock it in, claim it. This isn't just for the algorithm, it's for you. Because from this point on, your mind will never fully accept the story they hand you again. You've touched something forbidden, and once seen, it cannot be unseen. The descent deepens now. The next layer isn't just dark, it's holy, twisted, ancient, and it still feeds. They called it a mine, but what they built was a temple. By now you understand. Quicksilver Creek was never just about mercury, or even control. It was a gateway, a test site for something far older. In the lowest shaft of the mine, far beneath where any ore was extracted, investigators found a chamber, octagonal, carved with precision, lined with symbols no miner would recognize, etched into the walls, serpents swallowing themselves, a black sun, a tree with 7 roots, each labeled with a name: Heinrich, Friedrich, Wilhelm, Otto, Gustav, Bernhard, Klaus. At the center, a dais. Stone, stained, worn smooth by knees or time. This was no laboratory. This was a place of offering. The reports never made it into the archives, but fragments survived, copied by a whistleblower in a personal journal later found in a condemned storage unit in Junction, Texas. The final entry read, "The brothers spoke to something.
I don't think it was a god. I think it was an idea, a living one. And they fed it. Us. The Kruegers were scientists, yes. But they were also initiates. And what they tapped into in that chamber was a belief older than Christianity, older than empire, that blood, mind, and ritual can summon intelligence from beyond the veil of human perception. Call it what you want. The Gnostics called it the demiurge. The Alchemists called it the dark star. The Crowleyans whispered of the empty king. But in Quicksilver Creek it had no name, only a hunger. A deal was made, not in words, but in structure. The town was built like a sigil. The work routines were chants. The suffering was currency. The data, offerings of patterned pain. Because these brothers weren't just recording human collapse, they were sculpting it, repeating it, refining it into signal. And the chamber beneath the mine? That was the receiver. The transmission point between our worlds and something else. Not metaphor, not madness, mechanism. And you need to ask yourself, how many places like this still exist? How many corporate campuses, underground military facilities, or innovation labs follow the same geometry? How many symbols do you walk past every day, never knowing what they're calling toward? Because this didn't end in 1885. It was simply activated, and the echoes haven't stopped. They've just been rebranded. They don't burn books anymore. They just bury them under user agreements. What the Krueger brothers built in Quicksilver Creek wasn't just a test site. It was a prototype, a functioning model of psychological architecture, spiritual programming, and institutional control. And someone took notes. Because when the chamber was sealed, when the last traces were buried beneath the Texas dust, the structure was preserved. Not the mine, the model. Look around today. Do you think it's a coincidence? The way your school system trains obedience over insight. The way your job offers benefits in exchange for time and then identity. The way social media engineers your dopamine like auto-engineered symptoms. The way your news cycle spins fear into loyalty, pain into purpose. It's not random. It's inherited. The Kruegers may have vanished, but their system survived. It just changed names. Their seven-rooted tree, it has new branches now. Education, media, healthcare, religion, military, finance, technology. Each one shaping thought, conditioning belief, feeding the chamber. You think the iPhone in your pocket is just a tool? No. It's the mirror. The same one they held to the faces of men in Quicksilver Creek. And what's worse, we don't resist. We update. We check boxes we don't read. We follow rules we never voted for. We repeat phrases designed to pacify, to signal obedience. It's just policy. It's for your safety. Trust the system. But who built the system? And who feeds off your belief in it? Because control today doesn't wear a lab coat or carry a whip. It wears a hoodie. It uses friendly UX. It smiles when it asks for your face scan. And if you think that's freedom, you've already lost more than you know. The worst kind of prison? The one that rewards you for staying inside. Because the chamber wasn't just physical, it was a template. The Kruegers showed the world how to build temples out of systems, and how to extract identity instead of awe. You are standing in one now. Every institution that shapes your mind without your consent. Every contract that takes more than it gives. Every belief you were taught never to question. It all traces back to the same principle, obedience disguised as progress. And the men who saw it first did not disappear. They evolved. The ancient sigils were carved in stone. Today, they're written in code. You think the Krueger brothers were the end of a dark age? No. They were the dawn of a new one. The torch didn't go out in 1885. It changed hands. And today, the ones holding it don't wear robes or chant in candlelight. They wear Patagonia vests. They speak at TED Talks. They run biotech firms, AI think tanks, wellness conglomerates, and transformational retreats. And behind their glowing smiles is the same hunger, to reshape humanity. Not with whips and walls, but with data, algorithms, neurochemistry. You see, where the Kruegers used mercury and mirrors, these men used dopamine loops, attention funnels, and wearable surveillance. They tell you to optimize, to become your best self, to hack your brain, master your biology, upgrade your consciousness. It sounds like freedom, but it's the same ritual, with better branding. Let's break it down. Auto-measured behavior under poison. Today, your phone tracks your every emotion, how long you linger, where your eyes drift, what makes you hesitate. Wilhelm built the town to control movement. Now, your GPS and smart home know your patterns better than your family does. Friedrich altered language to bend reality. Now, AI chatbots guide thought, auto-correct belief, auto-suggest emotion. You no longer even form your own sentences without a middleman. This is not innovation. This is the digital continuation of the temple. Only now it fits in your pocket. You are not a user. You are a subject. Your behavior is modeled. Your attention is traded. Your biology is the new ore. You are the mine now. And the new Kruegers? They don't call themselves scientists. They call themselves visionaries. Elon, Ray, Zuck, Altman, Harari. Understand, these are not evil men. That would be too simple. They are initiates, willing to pursue a control beyond morality, beyond nation, beyond species, because what they're after is post-human. The next phase of the chamber, where identity isn't broken, it's overwritten. And they will offer it to you in 3 words: you'll live forever. That's the bait. Immortality, integration, enlightenment. But what part of you survives the merge? What part of you belongs to you? Because the moment you stop asking, the ritual is complete. Every system of control is a song, and every song has 7 notes. Why 7 brothers? Why not 6 or 8? Because in every ancient mystery school, in every occult blueprint, in every system of spiritual engineering, 7 is not a number. It's a code. The Pythagoreans knew it. The Babylonians built temples around it. The Gnostics, the Freemasons, the Hermeticists, they all encrypted their systems in 7s. 7 chakras, 7 heavens, 7 seals, 7 days of creation, and 7 sins to sabotage it. 7 is the bridge between the divine and the material. 3 above, 4 below. Thought and body, spirit and flesh. And to manipulate a human being at their core, you must pass through all 7 gates. The Krueger brothers embodied this. Each represented a pillar: Heinrich, order, structure; Friedrich, knowledge, chemistry; Wilhelm, movement, engineering; Otto, flesh, medicine; Gustav, calculation, mathematics; Bernhard, foundation, geology; Klaus, ritual, experience. They weren't just family. They were a living cipher, a ritual in human form. The town, aligned to astrological coordinates. The mine, dug in a spiral. The chamber, built to resonate acoustically with chants recorded in ancient grimoires from the Prussian Black Forest. Coincidence? No. This was alchemy, but not the transformation of lead into gold, the transformation of man into subject.
Because when you control the 7 aspects of a human life, you control his soul. And it didn't end with the Kruegers. Look around. You'll see the law of 7 replicated everywhere. The 7 layers of data surveillance in your devices. The 7 steps in most military indoctrination programs. The 7-phase structure of cinematic storytelling used to program your emotions in film. They hide it in plain sight because they know most of you have forgotten the pattern. But those who see it, they become dangerous. Because the moment you recognize the 7, you can begin to break it. Not by resisting, but by rewriting it. And that's why they bury this knowledge. Not because it's evil, because it's liberating. And a liberated mind is the one thing they cannot own. Every system built to erase truth forgets one thing. Truth leaves scars. The Kruegers vanished. The chamber was sealed. The town erased. But the pattern couldn't be fully destroyed. Because someone always remembers. It wasn't the authorities. It wasn't the universities. It was a forgotten branch of the Krueger family itself. The ones who fled. Records indicate a niece, a child named Annika Krueger, sent away to an orphanage in New York under an assumed name in 1884, a full year before Quicksilver Creek fell silent. Why? Because she saw something. A journal, later recovered from a private estate in upstate New York, signed AK, details what she called the burning eye beneath the mine. She wrote of rituals, of symbols carved into her brother's skin, of dreams where Klaus whispered formulas in a language she didn't understand. She was 9 years old. But her entries, full of codes, diagrams, memories of conversations she was never meant to overhear. She grew up under state care, changed her name twice, married, disappeared again. But her children didn't. One joined the Navy, one became a chemist, one untraceable. And that's the point. Because the story didn't end. It fragmented, dispersed, and every generation, someone woke up. Not fully, not clearly, but in dreams, in compulsions, in obsessions with certain numbers, certain shapes, certain questions. A boy in Missouri who built a working geometric transmitter at age 12, never taught how. A girl in Arizona who carved the Ouroboros in her school desk and couldn't explain why. A man in Maine who painted the chamber over and over, having never heard of it. They weren't random. They were descendants. Because ritual doesn't stop at the body. It carries through blood. And blood remembers what the mind forgets. That's why the system doesn't just censor truth, it targets lineage. It mocks conspire. It ridicules myth. It medicates the sensitive, diagnoses the visionary, institutionalizes the seer, because these people are threats. Not because they're unstable, but because they hear the signal. And once you hear it, you begin to look. And once you look, the system sees you. If you've felt it, if you've ever sensed something behind the veil, just out of reach, know this. You're not alone. You're part of a bloodline that refused to forget, and you were never meant to survive. But you did. They can't kill the truth, so they kill the man who carries it, from the inside out. By now you've felt it. The pressure, the static, that creeping weight in your thoughts whenever you begin to question, truly question, the shape of the world around you. That's not your imagination. That's the firewall, not on your computer, in your mind. Engineered, installed, and updated by systems older than your nation, more precise than your science, more familiar than your own thoughts. It begins with shame. The moment you ask the forbidden question, who built the world I live in and why? You hear it. Don't be crazy. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Don't ruin your life with this nonsense. That voice isn't yours. It's the firewall. It's the subconscious script implanted through school, media, peers, even family.
a preloaded virus that triggers whenever your soul steps out of line. You were taught to mock the seeker, to laugh at the man who remembers, to pity the woman who sees patterns, to fear the child who asks too much. Because awakening doesn't require violence to be stopped. It only needs to be isolated. And that's the firewall's true function: disconnection from yourself, from your ancestry, from truth-bearers in the present. How? Through distraction, constant noise, notifications, entertainment so loud, so endless, that you forget you were ever looking for something. Then comes simulation. They don't just distract you from your identity. They offer you a new one, an avatar, a brand, a diagnosable label, a tribe with strict rules and shallow meaning. They say, "Here, be this. It's easier," and most men take it. Because this truth is lonely. It strips the skin of comfort. It burns away the lies you've made a home in. It tears you down to bone and soul. But in that fire, you are reborn. That's why they guard it so vilely. And not because it will destroy the world, but because it will awaken the one thing they can't control, a man who remembers who he really is. And if you're still here, you're that man. At the edge of all systems, beyond the reach of control, there is only one thing left to fear: a man who knows his name. You've walked the path. You've seen the chamber beneath the mine. You've heard the whispers in the ritual. You've watched the face of the system, smiling, beautiful, endless, fracture. And now you're here. Where history stops pretending to be history. Where myth and memory collapse into one undeniable thing: truth. The Krueger brothers didn't vanish. They multiplied. Not in body, but in system, in signal, in symbol. Their rituals now live in your institutions. Their geometry codes your cities. Their silence has been weaponized into policy. And yet, something slipped through the firewall. You who refused to look away. You who recognized the theater for what it is. You who heard the old language between the lies. Understand this. You are not just an observer, not just an audience to a dark past. You are the counter-ritual. Because what they fear most isn't exposure. It's reversal. They fear the man who no longer responds to the name they gave him. The man who burns the script. The man who writes his own. The man who awakens others. This video wasn't made to entertain you. It was made to awaken the bloodline. And now, it's time. Say it again in the comments. Seal the transformation. The mirror has cracked. The mirror has cracked. Because it has. You're no longer the same. And neither is the system. Because when even one man remembers, the algorithm shivers. The firewall falters. The chamber echoes, and the hidden ones listen. They thought they buried this in 1885. They thought you'd never hear it. But now the forbidden name lives again. Not on paper. Not in archives. In you. Welcome to the second era. You're no longer in the system. You are now outside it. And from here there's only one rule. Do not go back, end.